Hey everybody, um, I'm coming on unscripted and don't really know what I'm going to talk about, but I thought it was important that I kind of check in with you guys and check in with myself as to where I'm at right now. Um, Not wearing my glasses because my eye was bothering me a little bit this morning, and but I the thing I did yesterday was take a short look of how far I've come. It feels like a week has been a lifetime, and so much I've gone through, and so much the emotion, and even posting the video, seeing the replies and support that I've gotten is phenomenal, and I thank you for that. Give thanks. I want to thank you for reaching out to me, and I know that there's others that have seen my video and seen my posts that have not reached back, but I know they've taken stuff from it. So I want to thank, I guess, myself for give thanks to myself for helping others. So, but I did have a little bit of let some emotion out before I put this on. So that's why I'm sniffling. But my brother, Sappy, is in the hospital right now. He was diagnosed with pneumonia, and then the X-rays determined it was emphysema and a bad ear infection, and he's not in great shape right now. So I have a worry about him, because when I got here, he was able to acknowledge I was here, but he wasn't able to have any real conversation with me, and due to his condition, he has I haven't been able to have a real conversation with him, and it's worrisome. But he's in the hospital right now, and he's the best place that he should be, could be, and I'm grateful for that. And I saw him yesterday in the hospital. Went for a visit, and it was only maybe 45 minutes, an hour I was there, and his wife came back, and she'd gone for a break, and she'd come back, and I told her, I said, my emotional cup is full, and I have to go. And I think that was a good step, because I acknowledged that I only had so much I could handle, and then I had to leave. So that's a positive point that I made on my life, is that I put limitations on myself for what I could do for myself, and to vocalize it, and not just run away and push all that down and not deal with it. So when I left the hospital, I was near in tears, but I got outside. I sat down on a bench. It was going to be about me, in an area that no one was openly walking by, and I put my hands, in fists, on my forehead, and I stared at the ground, and I think only one tear came out, but I acknowledged the feelings I had, acknowledge that I was sad and feeling helpless, for what I couldn't do for him. But in that moment, I wanted to call someone, and I didn't. But at the same moment, I was feeling, I was feeling like I was alone. And I had no one to call because, making that call was part of my struggle, was that I didn't want to deal with it alone. But dealing with it alone is something that is being me, is my growth, is that, I've been telling people that you don't have to be here. Your happiness is your own responsibility. And so are all the emotions. Being sad is your responsibility. But being able to recognize that I can look back on the last week and see how far I've come, is that I'm responsible for my own happiness. I'm responsible for my own sadness. I'm responsible for my, my accomplishments, being proud of who I am. But I'm responsible for who I am. I don't need anyone to allow me, or I don't need to lean into someone in order to be myself. Is that the growth comes when you can be who you are in that moment. So, got up from that bench, and I was able to walk away with just a little bit more strength than I had yesterday. And I know it seems like a lifetime that where I was last week. And I take a look at myself last week, I was nothing but a blubbering mess. I couldn't formulate thoughts that were reasonable, and I was still in the crisis. But I have made the video, and I've opened up, and I've started to accomplish my goal of telling my story and how I'm getting out of it. So, I've reached out to my family. I had a long conversation with my parents initially, and then I went over for supper and had a 3-hour supper with them, and I probably talked for the majority of it. Quite frankly, it's kind of funny because I probably could have told them the sky was purple, and they would have sit there and listened. But I did talk to them, but I was honest with them. I told them how I felt about about being me and the struggles I faced, and they didn't question anything. They just said, I just asked them. I just, on the phone call, I just said, I don't need you to talk. I just need you guys to listen. But I was able to just talk about, things that were important to me, and things that bothered me, and maybe some of it could have been stuff that I told them for the first time, but I didn't have to filter. I didn't have to edit for them. I didn't have to hold back anything because I didn't feel I needed to. I've been in bad situations before, and I excused it for various reasons, in a sense of pride. And in order to get to where I am today and be able to share this, is that you have to be able to, it comes to one word: humility. And humility is, for me, is to open up to the ability to be taught, or ability to see wrongs, ability to see strengths and weaknesses. And it's one of those things that, it's it was preached to me in the 12 steps. And, to be quite honest with you, I didn't really buy into the 12 steps. But the 12 steps is, I couldn't buy into it because of the higher power. I didn't know what the higher power was. I didn't believe in the church. I didn't believe in faith. I didn't have, creator. I didn't have that background of, my identity and culture. But I realize now that it's the higher power is just a name. It's something that people use as a label for whether it be God, creator. It's just something that we have to let ourselves be open to, that there is a greater purpose. And that's what right now I believe is my higher power. Is that I have a greater purpose from just being me. I have a, like I've said before, I have a gift, I have a strength, and that is my higher power. I have the strength to share my story and help others, and make the world a better place. So it is my higher power. So, whether it be the 12 steps, or whether it be church, or whether you be anything that you can grasp onto that is your higher power, don't give it a name if you don't want to, or give it a name. The journey is entirely up to you. And the hardest thing for me when I was growing up, was that I didn't know my past. I didn't know where I came from. I didn't have any answers. So it was hard for me to even embrace church. It didn't, how could I believe in something that, let others do harm to other people? And, so I didn't believe in God. I didn't believe in, and I didn't know where I wanted to be, because I didn't know where I started. And that was a huge hiccup, or not a hiccup, but a huge hurdle for me to overcome. Because it was difficult for me to have goals in life. I had accomplishments, but I did whatever I needed to do to, struggle and survive. And, and everything that I became involved in, I was successful because I'm talented, and not in the, it's book sense, but the ability to communicate with people. And not everybody can do that. So, I walked through these various careers, and, I remember when I was working on the rigs, I got bounced around so many times because, I worked for Neighbors for 10 years, and I probably worked in 20 other rigs. One of the guys says, do you know Kirby? It's like, one of the guys was like, yeah, everybody knows Kirby, because it was very easy to talk to me. I made it very easy for people to talk to me. Part of it could have been due to my disorder, that I didn't want to cause friction. And, I make the joke that, my dad didn't think I was much of a worker, but I sure could hold a flashlight. That was my opener. So when I first met someone and started working with them, that, I put them at ease. It's funny. It breaks the tension, and, as soon as you break that tension, people start relaxing around you, and they don't think of, because I went through life initially, angry, and I could put a serious face so that no one would talk to me. And you limit yourself as to how much they tell you or don't want to tell you, want to avoid you, and it's far more detrimental. And it was easy just to open up and be a funny guy, and I am a funny guy, and but I was thinking yesterday, I saw it was a podcast had Dr. Mate I was listening to, and he was talking about identity, and that's one of the things I struggled with. Is growing up is even though I was grown up in a white Canadian white home, I was Native, I was Cree, but and then went through my careers, and I had various, I was a EMT, so that was introduction, curb joint, an EMT, and then you go to meat packers, you work my way up, I'm a production line supervisor, and then went to the rigs, and then I was a driller. But when I came back from working overseas and I injured my eye, and the only work I could do was bounce, work the door, because it was limiting, and it didn't take a whole bunch of movement, and this is a little bit of admission, but for a little while there, I'm not going to say how long and who I was working with, but I was working the door as a bouncer, that I couldn't read the IDs unless I had good lighting, and you didn't always have that. So I'd look down the ID, but I'd look at the person, and so a lot of it was just, are they old enough, or and maybe one or two slip by, but I let people in that that needed to be in there, and I turned a lot away. But when you meet people, they ask who you are, and at that time, that's all I was doing. I was bouncing. So, what do you do for work? Well, I'm a bouncer. Well, right away that limits your conversation that they wish to have with you, because you identify as a bouncer, and when you do that, people don't think that you have much to talk about. You're very limited in your education, very limited in your and the conversation ends. But you sit there thinking to yourself, well, I'm a bouncer now, but you should hear all the stories I got. I mean, I have a plethora of stories that would just make your head spin, and that I had much more to offer that conversation than they would allow that. And what Dr. Matei said yesterday is that as soon as you put a label to yourself, you limit yourself as to being that. And I remember the first time I went to a 60sscoop Christmas dinner, and the guy that was on the podium was the president at the time of the 60sscoop Foundation, and he's in his speech, he says, "You are all survivors," and right away I felt hurt. I was like, oh my God, realization that I am a survivor, but being a survivor limits me as to who I am, because it labels me as someone that survived, someone that got hurt, and that's what labels are. Is that as soon as you label yourself as being a survivor, or being, one thing or another, that you limit yourself as to who you can be. And it's true, because you get in that mindset that I'm a bouncer, I'm a survivor, I'm a cardiologist, or I'm a doctor. It's limits as to who you are. Well, I'm more than that. I'm I'm also, an overseas. I drilled overseas for 3 years. So, but anyways, that's the one thing I took away from that, and I wanted to share that. Don't get hung up on labels, because everyone's much more than that. And if you're in that point in your life that you need that label, then maybe you should reevaluate, because everyone's much more than a label, or identity, or their career, or where they are in their life right now. Just being comfortable who you are. I'm comfortable being Kirby. So that's kind of the learning lesson I wanted to share with you. But I also wanted to share a little bit of balance in my posts. So I'm going to share a story with you. It's a quite funny story, and I hope you enjoy it. So one of the first times I was working overseas, we had to travel through the Middle East. And it's either my first or second time that I'd been over there, but you travel to the Middle East, and I was scared, quite literally, nervous, and I wanted to do the right thing and not offend anybody. And so I think I was flying through the Emirates, the UAE, and I remember when I landed, I got to the gate, and I knew my next gate, but I also had to go to the bathroom. I had to go pee. But I decided that I didn't want to miss my next flight, and I wanted to get to the next gate, and these are huge airports. And I think I had an hour in between flights, and it took me 45 minutes to get to the next gate. So by the time I got to the next gate, or close to it, I had to pee so badly. And I was trucking along this hallway, and I seen the men's symbol. So I go in there, and this is the weirdest looking bathroom I've ever seen. So it had this, almost looks like a shower enclosure that you see in the swimming pool. It had, that red plastic stuff that you walk on that hurts your feet. It had a swimming pool, and it had a couple drains, just in this open area. Then it almost looked like podiums. It had these posts sticking up, and then it had these slanted things on there. And I was like, well, this Middle East, maybe it's something I've never seen before. But it had drains, and had and these things on the wall, for these hoses. And I knew they didn't use toilet paper over there, so I thought it was a washroom. So I'm just about to, let loose, and I'm standing there, and then this worker, he starts yelling at me, and he's speaking Arabic. I had no idea what he was saying, but I knew I was in the wrong. I wasn't supposed to be there. So he's signaling, get out, get out. So I get out, and so I turn the corner, and then I see another men's. So I book it over there, and that was the washroom. I come out of the bathroom, and I look, and well, the room I was just in, to begin with, where the worker was yelling at me, that was where they wash their feet before they go into prayer. I was very humbled by that, and that I was just glad I didn't have to go number 2. So anyways, that's my good with the bad and balance to my stories. So hope you enjoy. Peace.